Hey everybody, Gatsby here. As is tradition, here's a piece of content that makes no damn sense unless I explain it. I'm going to try really hard to sound natural, but here's what's happening. I recorded this thing naturally in just normal speaking voice, and the audio was blown out, but I really liked the way I said things, so I transcribed that, and now I'm rereading what I said before. So I am sorry if some of it sounds wrong. I do think that I'm a pretty good orator, but when listening back to my previous take, I was monotone and weird. Fuck it. We're going to try this shit again. All right. So I've been trying to make video games now for a lot of different reasons, and one of which you already know, which is that I spent the last year absolutely failing to find a new job. I lost my job at Nexus. I haven't been able to talk about it publicly, and I've just been writhing in trauma over it. And it happened at a really horrible time because I was already experiencing a lot of artistic burnout. The boys don't want to do bro op anymore, and now I didn't have anywhere to put any of these stories in my head. While I was job hunting, I actually started teaching myself Unity so I could have some sort of vertical slice for my portfolio. I wasn't originally trying to make this game. I wasn't trying to demonstrate game development skills because I didn't really have any yet. I was trying to make an interactive demo of my voice acting and writing and other stuff I can do, because I want to keep working in the games industry. I don't necessarily even need to make games. I love games. I think it would be awesome to make games. I just want to do what I'm already good at and stay in the industry that I enjoy working in. I was an operations specialist, so I did everything. I wrote web copy, I did tech support, I wrote our knowledge base shit, I did business development research and presentations. I did all kinds of stuff that I guess I didn't realize companies need, but they do. And they were things that blew my mind that they would pay you for because they were things that I was just naturally good at. I didn't think anybody would pay somebody to write an email for them, you know? They would tell me what they wanted me to write, and I would write it. And I would be like, what have you even paid me to do? I don't understand. But I'd lived a life of privilege where I'd forgotten not everybody is good at writing. So not everybody likes writing. Not everybody likes the process of turning what they've said into something that they have faith other people will understand. Not everybody likes dealing with people. I like handling shitty customers. I like de-escalating stuff. I don't know. That's a consequence of a troubled childhood, but it wound up being me, and I got paid for it, and I loved it. And I didn't realize that was an avenue in because I didn't get into brain development. I didn't get into game development when I was younger. I was undiagnosed ADHD, so I couldn't count on my brain to do a goddamn thing that I wanted it to. And I was terrible at math, so I didn't think I could do anything related to development or programming. But now I'm seeing that game developers need PR people, and they need someone to coordinate business meetings and make influencer deals. And I was like, holy shit, I've got to strengthen my portfolio in this, because while I don't have formal education in it, I've spent the last 4 years doing it. So originally I was just going to make a little stupid top-down RPG where you walked around and talked to people, and they'd be like, oh, Jesse, I know him. And you're basically getting my resume from all these different characters. And goddamn, I had so many versions of that game. One of them I still want to make is called Crunch. And it was basically you're kicked out of this game studio, and they had all your work samples. So you're having to steal back your work samples by going around to all these different computers. And I just got kind of overwhelmed. I was like, what's the game here? Ultimately, one of the biggest things I learned about game development, though, especially as it pertains to ADHD, is that I was really beating myself up over the fact that I wasn't finishing anything. I would get bored of a project, I'd burn out, I'd want to start over now that I knew more, or I'd want to try something different. And I kept telling myself what people have told me about that kind of behavior all my life, which is if you keep doing that, you're never going to finish anything that you start. And while that's true, if you're self-instructing on a skill, and especially game design, you've got to forgive yourself for that. You've got to just roll with it and understand that every abandoned project was a step in the learning process. You know, if you're burning out, you've got to change things up, or else you're not going to be able to keep working on the hobby. You want to prevent from burning out on the hobby. So if you're burning out on one aesthetic, you can start something new with a different aesthetic. If you're burning out on a genre, I'm sorry, in the middle of recording this, I fucking stabbed myself. Oh, man, speaking of being a fidgety, disabled asshole. All right, let me... I'll get a second. Hold on. Okay, I'm not bleeding, and I'm not entirely too humiliated to continue. So, you've got to forgive yourself for needing to change things up, especially if you've got ADHD and you're just self-instructing yourself on a skill. Anyway, all I was saying is I had to learn how to forgive myself for those moments, because, you know, you got to do whatever you can to keep yourself from burning out on the hobby itself. I know you just noticed me jumping. That's actually going to be important. So this is Townsend, and Townsend is a place that everybody thinks is perfectly normal and clearly isn't. Like, as the game opens, you come to realize your school bus isn't going to arrive because the road is blocked by this tree. And I know you can tell that tree looks different than everything else, but I also, you know, it's technically the exact same as the everything else, and that's why it looks weird. Because the tree is fallen on its side, and that's impossible. And no one knows how to go around this tree, because that's impossible. It's blocking the path. Now, you and I understand there are clearly several ways around this tree. You should be able to squeeze through here, but you can't. You should be able to push the tree, but you can't. That's because you are not Z. The character on screen is Z. Z lives here. Z was born here. Z grew up here. Z understands the world to be exactly like this. And you are the third person. There are 3 people involved in the plan to save this world. The first person is the one that you spoke to at the opening. Z is the second. And in order to help Z get through all of this, you have to help them see the way that you do. As the third person. Welcome to the ordinary world of Townsend. It's not actually flat, but that's the way people see it now. Something I want to add, but I haven't gotten quite right yet, is I want there to be something just horrible in the sky. Just fucking awful. Kind of like in Majora's Mask with the screaming moon coming down. But unlike Majora's Mask, people can't see that the sky is falling. You can, because of stuff that's going to happen in the story, but they can't. They don't even know what a sky is. They can't look up. They can't jump. They don't know what any of these things mean. But Z is going to come in contact with something called a foil. Now, in terms of quantum physics, a foil is like a rule of thumb. It's like a physical law. And in this world, foils are the physical manifestations of laws that no longer exist for these people. They used to be a part of reality, but then they've been locked away from them. And the first one you get is the HOLLOWFOIL. It doesn't actually give you any powers, but what it does do is grant you equipment slots. Now, I haven't added the rooms back in yet. I did in the old draft where you could walk into the houses, but you see where I'm going for. Like, in a game like Pokemon or the old school Final Fantasies, when you walk into a house and suddenly it's way bigger on the inside, that's something that these people actually have. They don't realize it, but they have access to a spatial dimension that we don't, where a space can have a bigger 3D volume within it than it can on the outside. And the HOLLOWFOIL does that to you as a person. It grants you an interior space where you can equip abilities. And as you unlock these foils, you gain access to things like jumping. This character has all 3 jumps unlocked. I still have to fix it to where jumping near a sign won't trigger the sign. I guess I'm going to make it to where if you're not grounded, you can't read a sign. But anyway, jumping. There are also 2 different melee attacks, and I want them to hurt enemies differently depending on the angle you attack from. Because technically, I'm swinging this baseball bat in a way that is impossible. Like, it's turned on its side now, so it's an infinitely thin piece of geometry now. Like, logically, that would give lethal damage to things that otherwise wouldn't be killable, because they're now getting struck by an impossibly sharp edge. So I got the jump. I got the dash. I've got to turn it back on because these things are unlockable. So right now they're just checkboxes in the editor, and I will add ways to unlock them in game later. But I've got a jump. I've got a dash. I've got this ability called off the grid. So if you look at the way I'm moving now, I have to stay on the tiles. But once I turn off the grid on, I am able to move in whatever direction I want, and I don't snap to the nearest coordinate position. And that'll be important as I continue to navigate the world now that I know that it's in 3 dimensions, because it will allow me to squeeze into spaces that normally it wouldn't allow my character to move into. I also went ahead and made it to where the trees get taller in third person, and that they kill you if you land on them. For 2 reasons. Whenever I left the sprite the way it was, you could too easily see over the tree line. I didn't like that. And once you get the jumps, you can get stuck in there, and it's really hard to get out. So I'm already kind of imagining that the trees are like watching you, and that they're like malevolent and trying to eat you. Anyway, this is Stump. Obviously, you as a real person can see the stump and go, why can't I just go around or over the stump? And so as you're coming to understand that that's the progression loop of the game, that unlocking basic skills is going to give you superpowers. Oh, now I can jump up the stump. Now I can walk up fucking stairs. There's not supposed to be an enormous shadow over this area, by the way. I forgot to turn off the chunk where the cutscene exists. That's above us right now. The gameplay loop, I guess I sort of kind of turned it into a third-person platformer with combat mechanics, but I don't know if that's going to fit the vibe of the game, because I was originally going for more of an adventure mystery RPG. I'm thinking maybe there will be floating islands that no one else can see, and that's where the platforming can come in, because, you know, you'll be able to see them up in the air and you'll want to get up to them. But I want this to work really like kind of like a Link to the Past randomizer, where the different foils represent different key items or movement mechanics or gameplay mechanics or attack mechanics. And every time you beat a dungeon or whatever, you get a foil. You actually get a hollow foil that unlocks a slot. And that means you can get a booster pack. Booster pack's going to have 3 random foils in it. And you have to decide which one you most need to equip. You're deciding which abilities you need right now, or the ones that you think are the best. Sorry, I'm a former teacher, so of course I left the cursor on the goddamn screen. But anyway, you're creating a build to suit your playstyle out of the game's various key items. So that includes things like the jump. If you feel like you only need 1 jump, you can save your other slots for other things. If you feel like you need all 3 jumps, that's fine too. You saw earlier I was able to get back up on top of the columns because I had fallen off. I had all 3 jumps. If you don't feel like you need the jumps at all, that's fine too. You can save everything for combat. And if you don't even want to see the world in 3D, you don't have to. You know, you can still jump. It works. And, you know, theoretically, you could play the whole game in 2D and just use your brain. Like, you understand now that there's things behind things so that you know to go looking for them without actually having to tilt the camera. You're like, oh, this world has 3 dimensions now. Let's see if there's anything behind this house. What do you know? I'm bumping into something behind this house. So you didn't even have to see it. You could infer that that was there. But yeah, right now it's obviously missing a lot of stuff. I may be doing these things out of order. It seemed to be my understanding that my goal is to finish the actual mechanics of the game before I really start building out the world and stuff like that, to really make sure it's even going to be fun. But yeah, that's why there's still like weird, like floating islands casting a huge shadow on things and stuff that I haven't finished adding in. But I don't have any formal education in game design. I was under the impression that was going to be a bad idea for me. You know, I was really worried about having a reliable career, so I went into teaching instead. Took me 3 years to find my first teaching job. Taught for 3 years and lost it for no reason. And, you know, have been out here doing jobs that have nothing to do with teaching and having way more fulfillment in my life. So I'm really trying to pivot in some way to either showcase these skills in a way that can get me back into the remote space, or, I don't know, best case scenario, put out a fucking video game. That's not necessarily what I'm going to put like all of my effort into right now, though, because like priority number 1 is finding full-time employment that is going to stick with me. You know, the last video I put out, I talked about having to work at the prison. I was really heartbroken to have to do that because, number 1, I don't agree with a lot of the just general ethical and political attitudes of a lot of the people that I was working with. It reminded me too much of school, and that fact was really demoralizing for me. And just like school, it wasn't the quote kids who ruined it for me. It was the adults. I got fucking hazed and reported the dude. And as far as I know, he's still working there. But I won't be. I do have a new job starting soon that is remote and is using my skills more appropriately, and it pays decently, but it is a temporary position. And so I've still not locked down very reliable full-time employment. So just a whole bunch of different irons in the fire, as it were. And I did a little poll in the community Discord that was like, hey, if I started putting out little blogs or little game dev things, would you be interested in that? Do you want me to put it on the main bro up channel or nah? Because, you know, as far as I'm concerned, this channel and what it really stands for is retired. Like, this is supposed to be a channel about playing games with friends, and a channel that like showcases who my friends are as a family. And despite my best efforts, that family has become extremely estranged. So I really didn't see this channel continuing in any way. But if there is a desire to see more of my just solo, introspective, demonstrative content, I'm being told to put it here. So, let me know if you want to see more of that. Let me know if you want to see more HOLLOWFOIL. And thanks for everything.